You're listening to From the Chair, and I'm your host, Mike Hamilton. Join us each episode as we talk to athletic directors from across America. We're going to talk about topics like leadership, career development, issues of the day, and I can promise you we're going to have some fun along the way too. So sit back, listen in, and let's dive in. Let's go. All right, welcome into what is now the third season of From the Chair. Hard to believe. We took a little hiatus for a few weeks, but now we're back. And we're back in a big way with University of North Carolina Director of Athletics, Bubba Cunningham. Bubba, thanks for joining us.
Well, thanks, Mike. Looking forward to having the conversation. Haven't seen you in a while, and it's good to see you.
That's absolutely true. Absolutely true. You know, I was thinking today in trying to, finish my setup for this particular interview, just about your longevity. I mean, if you list the top 15, 20 ADs in terms of longevity, you're a senior statesman now, and you're one of the great places. And I'm curious, certainly, as I mentioned, you're a great place, but what do you owe, or why do you think you have been there at Carolina for such a long time and it's been such a good marriage?
Well, I do think that Carolina really values history and tradition, and we've had an awful lot of coaches that have been here a long time. We have exceptional leadership with our board of trustees and with our chancellors. And I think that's all been part of the culture is we really look hard to find people that fit the university. And then when we have somebody that we feel like fits, it continues to work. And I feel like I was new when I got here, didn't have a long, deep relationship with North Carolina, but I have fit in fairly well. And I think that is a comfort that this place exudes.
Fit matters, and I do think that's important, particularly as you're hiring coaches and staff and so on and so forth. And so, I grew up in the state of North Carolina, great admiration for UNC. My wife's a graduate there. I'm curious, if you were to define in front of a bigger audience or whatever, what fit means at University of North Carolina as you begin to look to hiring coaches or bringing in administrators in your department. What does fit mean there in Chapel Hill?
Well, I think it really is, what's the culture of that place? And in North Carolina, we've had the same mission in intercollegiate athletics since my first year. And that mission was developed in a strategic planning process that we were led through by a faculty member. And it was, we had student athletes, we had coaches, we had staff, we had faculty, we had administrators, we had the Carolina community help us develop our strategic plan and mission. And the mission is we educate and inspire through athletics. And I think as long as you stay with your mission and you make decisions consistent with your values, then you can have consistency over time. And so I think when we look for fit, I think it's people that really respect the history and tradition of the place. We want to be excellent in everything that we do. And we have a motto in the department that we want to be top 3, top 10, top 3 in the conference, academically and athletically, top 3 in the country, as well as academic and athletic, as I mentioned. So top 3, top 10, and that's what we strive for every single sport that we have every year. And I think it's pretty clear to our coaches and our community that that's what we're attempting to achieve.
So there was a time and day when you could, if you suggested you had a job at North Carolina or Clemson or Tennessee or wherever for an intern or an entry-level employee, they would line up down the hallway just to get the free T-shirt and the free hot dog, right? They just wanted it in the door. And I do believe that there has been change in the way that we have to bring younger people into the intercollegiate space and more than just bring them in, retain them. I'm curious, have you guys had to face that at Carolina yet? Or are you still in that place where, because of the rich history, folks are still clamoring to come in the door at the Smith Center?
Well, we've had great tradition, and we do have a lot of students that come, but it fluctuates. Everybody wants to come to the Duke Carolina basketball game. They all want to come to the big game in football, the big gymnastics meet, or the great soccer match. And you just understand that. Fans are fans, and they want to come to the elite game. But we have 18,000 undergraduates. We have 28 varsity teams, and we have over 200 events a year. And I had a student in here that was on an admissions tour yesterday. And they did the admissions tour. And one of the students that was touring this other high school student around said, "I love it here. I go to 2 or 3 athletic events a week." And I was like, "Man, I need to get that student's name because I want to make sure they know that they can come by my office anytime they want." But those are the students that are here. They take great pride in the success of our Olympic sport program. So they're not just football and basketball fans. They really honor the field hockey students, the lacrosse students, the wrestlers. So it's a fun place to go to school, and I was delighted to hear that high school student say that about one of our undergraduates.
For certain. So I want to bounce back to the concept though of young people and filling open positions within your athletic department for to be your future assistant director of marketing, associate director of marketing. A lot of candidly, a lot of those entry level positions. Are you guys finding it to be difficult to seek out,
Yeah.
recruit, and retain folks who are in those entry level jobs where maybe the pay is not as good, or have you, because of the place that you are at UNC, been able to not have to face that yet?
Yeah, I'm sorry if I misinterpreted the question by the students
That's all right.
versus the staff, but I will say that we have had a lot of turnover in our 0 to 5 year staff members. It is a fairly significant high rate. I attribute it to the things that you mentioned. It's a number of hours that you have to work, the number of weekends that you work. COVID, I don't think helped us because there's an awful lot of students that have remote options now. I mean, when you're serving 800 student athletes and hosting 200 events, you can't do that at home. You have to be here, and that's not a lifestyle that some people like. The pay at the entry level is very, very low. So you do have turnover. Now, I will say, once you get from 5 to 10 or 10 and beyond, we have very little turnover. So it's just that first wave, and it can become frustrating for some of our mid-level staff members because we have people that have been here a long time and their bosses don't turn over, so their chance of promotion is fairly limited at times. But
Makes
I think the
makes a lot of
industry is
sense.
kind of going through a change right now, and it is harder and harder to attract young people and get them to stay in the industry for a while.
Great training ground, though. I think it was the Mark Harlan interview I did this past year, where Mark was talking about, maintaining, retaining younger and talented employees. And something they started doing at the University of Utah is they actually give those employees who work, those exorbitant hours on the weekends, they actually give them Monday off. That would not be something that a lot of people would think about over time, probably, but that's what they're doing now, and they found that to be a positive for some of the younger staff members. And I'm not necessarily out here championing that, but I mean, it's a sign of the fact that you've got to meet the employees where they are and understand that the needs and how people approach the marketplace in today's world is just simply different.
Smart. You're right. No, you do have to meet the employees where they are. And we did a Disney Institute came in and met with our staff a number of years ago, and I always thought Disney was customer, 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 and that's where I had my focus earlier in my career. And then when they ran their chain of excellence, they started with the staff, with the leadership of the staff. Then they went to the staff itself, then the customer. And they said, if you have a great staff and everyone's on the same page, you're going to treat your customers well. And when you treat your customers well, your business operation will get better. And so there was a real focus on staff. So we've really tried to do that ourselves and focus on what do they need to be successful. And if you can give it to them, they will better serve your customer. And that's been our focus for the last couple of years.
That's great. So you've now been the athletic director almost 12 years, I guess, at the University of North Carolina. You've won 21 national titles. Your teams have won 21 national titles and had 14 runner-ups. That's just not happenstance. And by the way, for those who don't know, you sponsor more sports than a lot of other institutions that are out there. I'm curious if you find common themes. We started out talking about culture, right, and fit, and certainly that's got to be foundational to what I'm asking. But when you win that many championships and finish at that level with such consistency, are there foundational strengths that you believe that your coaches build off of, you guys using recruiting, that have allowed you to be so successful in so many ways?
Well, you said it without saying it. The reason we've been successful, the reason the university's been successful, is we have great coaches, and our entire staff. I tell our student athletes and I tell our families when they come to campus that very first weekend of their freshman year, we have all the parents together with the students and say, we have 285 people full time in this department trying to guarantee that the all the things that our coaches promised when we recruited you, we're trying to deliver those to you. And so whatever those needs are, the students or the coaches, that's what our responsibility is. Provide the resources for our coaches to be successful, and then support them along the way. And that's what we try to do. And it has worked at Carolina because we've had great coaches.
Mm. All right, so we're going to play a little word association right now. This is not a true, I mention a word and you respond with a word. It's short, I call it short topics. And candidly, you'll find just because the one I'm going to ask you off the top, I mean, we could do a whole show on each one of these topics. And so, but I'm just interested in, as you're living your life every day now and as an athletic director, these are some, some key people and some key things that are showing prevalence in the marketplace. And so, let's just throw a softball out there and go with NIL first.
Yeah, that's good and nice and easy. Great opportunities for students, challenges for the industry, and something that we still have to navigate and think about how to handle it in a collegiate environment. Um, the ability to monetize your name, image, and likeness is very different in an environment where we recruit student athletes and we don't draft them. And so I think that the acquisition of talent and name, image, and likeness have been intertwined. And I think that's problematic, and we have to sort through that.
Yeah. So these two are tied together. Transfer portal had to be my second. Um, you know, if you are a skeptic of some of the activity, and I'm not a skeptic, I do think there needs to be maybe some more corralling of the enterprise on what's the best thing for the sport, for collegiate sports. Some folks would say the transfer portal has had a negative effect. Albeit some student athletes would say, a lot of student athletes would say, hey, this is the best thing that ever happened to me. I'm curious as your thoughts around the transfer portal.
Well, I think the transfer portal, I do think graduation rates will decrease because the more you transfer, the less likely you are to graduate. We've known that in college athletics for years. The ability to transfer, yeah, it's the same as NIL. And I don't really feel like I'm a skeptic of NIL. I feel like I'm trying to be balanced in these are the good things about it, these are the challenges associated with it. And I feel the same way about the portal. The portal does give you freedom of movement, it does give you the opportunity to get to a place that may be a better fit for you, but it also makes it easier to leave something that is challenging. And that may not be in your best interest. It may be in your short term best interest, but it may not be long term. And where you go next may not be quite what you thought it was when you got there either. And I do think some people are leaving really good opportunities for some type of a short term benefit. I'm not sure that that's great. NIL and transfer portal at the same time have definitely been a challenge for our coaches and roster management, things like that. But again, we'll figure it out somehow, and we'll still field teams, and our rosters will be full. But are we going to be filled with graduate students? Are we going to be filled with undergraduate transfers, or are we going to be filled with high school students? And most likely it'll be some combination of the three.
Yeah, I talked to an AD not too long ago who said that this is a mid-major program, successful basketball program, and he was saying that his coach had come to him and said he wasn't going to recruit high school kids any longer. That he had determined that he would let the major programs recruit the young men and let it filter out, and then he would recruit out of the pool that comes out of the major school fallout. And while that is certainly a strategy to find success, it just sort of tugged at my heart a little bit because the high school enterprise in that situation, it plays a vital role. High school athletics plays a vital role in the success of intercollegiate athletics, and I think it was probably it might have been more of a statement of bravado than fact, Bubba. But that is, some coaches are having to think outside the box like that.
Yeah. Well, I think you're right. I mean, we have a pyramid of participation that I talk about. We have youth sports, we have high school sports, we have college sports, we have pro sports. And as you get to the top of the pyramid, there's fewer that can participate. And so I do worry that we're going to start losing people at the bottom if we shrink what's going on at the top. And that can be, if high school opportunities aren't going to be looked at as favorably by colleges, I worry about how many kids are going to play high school sports. And if the high school sports drop, then ultimately youth sports will drop. So I do think all of us in college athletics and those of us in sport, we have an obligation to think about how to build participation. And unfortunately, I think is what we've done in the last 30 years is really focused on the elite of the elite. And there's room for that. But I think we have to be aware of all the other participation opportunities.
All right, so four names: Charlie Baker, the
I think
NCAA
Charlie
president.
Baker's done
Have
a
you had a
fabulous
whole lot of
job.
exposure yet? Your impressions?
He's done a fabulous job. He I've met him a couple of times. He's been successful in whatever he's done. I'm incredibly optimistic that he will help lead intercollegiate athletics to a better place. Um, so I'm continuing to invest in his leadership.
Okay, a guy who's been a longtime friend of mine and yours, your commissioner, Jim Phillips.
Outstanding individual, cares passionately about the student athlete, passionately about intercollegiate athletics. He's got a very difficult job in trying to continue to maintain competitive balance within our league of 15 schools, recognizing that we don't necessarily have all the resources of some of the other schools, financial resources, that is, but we have some other absolute incredible advantages because of the schools that make up our league.
Hmm. Tell you, it's a tough job in today's world with all the realignment, for sure. Um, Hubert Davis.
Outstanding individual. He's passionate about this place. He's passionate about basketball. He's passionate about his family. And, he did an incredible job his first year in getting those kids to buy in. He did the same great job last year. We just didn't win enough games. And a whole new roster this year. I couldn't think of a better person to work with on a day-to-day basis.
Okay, and then we'll finish the name game with the elder statesman, Mac Brown.
Same thing. Wonderful individual. Came back to a place that he built into a top 10 team, maybe a top 5 team, and people absolutely love him here. He's a mentor, he's a leader, he is passionate, he's enthusiastic. And today's the first opening meeting, which is why I asked to do this a little bit earlier. And then we start practice tomorrow. And I was concerned, I have to admit, I was concerned hiring somebody his age to be the football coach and whether or not he would really be willing to recruit. Thrives on recruiting. He absolutely is energized by it, and there's nobody better at talking to kids and talking to parents about what the commitment to Carolina is, his commitment to you, his your commitment to the university, and how that will extend well beyond your playing days.
I can't imagine him being anything but successful in the living room. I mean, he's a dynamic guy with a lot of charisma, you know. So you mentioned leadership. Let's circle up here on some leadership questions, and then I got a couple of just bizarre questions to ask you. First of all, we all have our view of what leadership looks like and what it means to be a good leader and how to lead in the right way. I'm curious, how has your philosophy grown during the years? Have there been mentors that you've observed, people you've learned from, books you've read, things you've done I mean, obviously, Bubba, you would not be where you are and have been doing this so long if you were not clearly a leader, particularly in today's world. So I'm curious what leadership means to you and how you've grown your philosophy over the years.
Well, I mean, gosh, that's such an open-ended question. To start with, I have read a lot. I've read a lot of books on leadership. I've listened to a lot of tapes. So very early on in my career, I was working in the Alumni Association, and I drove the alumni van all over the country. And I used to listen to motivational tapes, whether it was Zig Ziglar or Norman Vincent Peale. Our alumni director had a library of cassette tapes, and I was always in the van driving. So I was listening to these tapes by myself. And that was a great experience in and of itself. So the head of the Alumni Association, a guy named Chuck Lennon, was the first guy that really mentored me along the way. Can't say enough good things about him and his leadership, and just personally and professionally. Then I had the opportunity to work for four incredible athletic directors in Gene Corrigan, Dick Rosenthal, Mike Wadsworth, and Kevin White. And I worked under all four of those and learned a lot of things from them, completely different styles, completely different priorities, other than students and people come first in every one of those different people. So I learned from them. And then having had the opportunity to be an AD at three different schools, the the presidents of those schools, the chancellors, the coaches I've interacted with, all of those help shape your leadership style. And I've been really fortunate to work with great people and said, these are attributes that I admire and these are the things I want to emulate. But I am who I am, and I'm going to do it the way I think Bubba Cunningham should do it, and work with people on an everyday basis. So I've just been really fortunate to be in higher education, intercollegiate athletics, with great coaches and great mentors along the way.
So do you feel when you're in the recruiting process of hiring a new coach, how do you give credence to each coach's own individual leadership abilities, some of which might match your philosophies and some of which might not, and understanding there's different ways to get the job done, and but yet keep your bias out of it because of your philosophy personally, right? We again we started this conversation about fit and culture and all those kind of things. I'm curious now, how do you look at leadership in the context of the different coaches you've recruited? Because as evidenced by the 21 national championships, you're doing something right there.
You know, I wish I had an answer for you. And I'm going to sound schizophrenic trying to answer that question. There's a few things that I go into a search thinking this is what I think we need to do. Absolute number one thing every single time I go into a search is I want to hire a coach that has head coaching experience. I don't care if it's the high school level, the college level, I don't care what level it is. I think somebody that has done it before is going to be successful. And I've hired a 22-year-old. I've hired a 72-year-old. I've hired people with no experience. I've hired people with 30 years of experience. So it really is about fit. I go in with a predisposition, but as I go through the process with a lot of help from an awful lot of people and trying to guide us and say, what do we need right now in this particular position? We end up completely different than what we thought we were going in. So it really is about leadership, about values that they have, how they're going to communicate, who they're going to recruit, what do we need at the time at this particular institution in this particular sport. And we've been all over the map and who we've actually hired. So I don't have a formula to say, hey, these are the 5 questions I'm going to ask. And if they answer these 5 questions appropriately, then we're going to hire this particular person. I never in my wildest dreams thought we'd hire some of the people we did. And I could not be more pleased with the ones we have hired.
That's great. So we talked about a lot of things that are in the soup pot in college athletics today. I'm curious, as someone who now in the latter stages of your career, you're able to look back and you know a lot of people in the industry. You've seen the way the industry has had its ups and downs, and I'll say mostly ups, right? But some ups and downs along the way. What are you hopeful about in collegiate athletics?
Oh, I just want to I don't want to maintain. I want to continue to create opportunities for kids to go to college and play a sport that they love. Again, as I said at the beginning, our mission is we educate and inspire through athletics. It's inspirational to me and everybody in our staff to see what these young people can do. The ambition, the enthusiasm, the optimism that they bring every single day is something that we need to maintain. And so we want to then make sure that they get a great education while they're here, because we recognize that, not all that many are going to go play pro, but they have this great experience. They have this great time together, this great learning experience. We want to make sure that that continues. So as I look to the future, we want to continue to give these kids more choices to play professionally, more choices for income, more choices for resources. And we have to figure out a way to get the commercial activity so that it's fair and equitable, and we fill the right buckets of people that need it. As over time, what we've had in college athletics, we've had revenue sharing in college athletics forever. We've generated as much money as we possibly can. We spread it across as many teams, as many students as we possibly can. But what we're starting to see today is uh, definitely a feeling that if I generate it, I get it. And so if we do that, those that can't generate money, how are we going to sustain those sports? Because I do think incredible opportunities are really important to intercollegiate athletics. And how do we maintain that if we change the economic model?
All right, let's enter a couple of fun ones. You do a pregame morning run before your football games in Chapel Hill, and you always post a picture on what used to be Twitter, I guess now X.com, and will be Threads. And you always cut your head off right here. I know all your pictures, and I think it's kind of a fun thing that you're noted by. But is it an open-ended invitation to go on your morning run with folks?
Absolutely. And, we may only get 5, 6, 7 people, depending on the weather. And sometimes the entire wrestling team came or women's lacrosse came. And it's just fun. We have alumni that come in town and we tweet it out and say, hey, we're going to run tomorrow at 7:30. And it's a 5K through campus. And people ask me if I'm a runner. I said, no, I run 6 times a year. And so I'm getting slower every year that we do this, but it's fun. We meet in the parking lot. We go jog a little bit. It's game day. See them setting up the tents and the tailgates. We come back, have a cup of coffee, and hang out. It's a great way to start the weekend.
Well, and I can only imagine. Um, I mean, I know that's a beautiful run in the morning through your campus. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. Last thing. So, and I don't know if there's a story around this or not, and I never asked you, but how did you get the name Bubba?
Oh, I was a short, fat little kid, and my sisters couldn't say brother. I have 2 older sisters, and they couldn't say it, and so it stuck. I still have aunt and uncles that occasionally call me brother. I don't know where that came from, but it also kept my dad. My dad, we have the same first name, and it kept us apart. So it just kind of stuck. Now I'm just an old fat kid, so
That's
it still
great.
fits.
My mom's nickname is Winky, and she would rather have the nickname than her given name, and it's because she could not wink. She had an uncle that gave her that nickname because she could not wink. And if you were to ask about her in our hometown now by her given name, no one would know who she is. But if you say Winky, everyone knows who she is. So I think
That that's funny. Yeah, nicknames. You never know which ones are
nicknames
going to
are
stick and which ones aren't.
I think nicknames are awesome. All right, so look, I really appreciate you taking the time. I do know you want to get over to your football activity there, and let's get this thing going. Right, August is here. The first game is right around the corner. I believe you guys opened up with South Carolina, if I'm not mistaken.
Exactly right. South Carolina in Charlotte. Yep.
That's great. So I appreciate you taking the time out today, Bubba. I knew this would be a fun conversation, and so just I want to end before closing it out, just saying thanks for joining me.
Well, thanks for having me, Mike. You've had a great career. You've been a great leader in this industry. I've admired your work from afar, and you continue to inspire an awful lot of people. So I appreciate all you do and appreciate what Learfield does for so many universities across the country.
You got it, man, for sure. All right, folks, you have been listening to From the Chair. I'm your host, Mike Hamilton, and today's guest, first guest, season 3, UNC Athletic Director Bubba Cunningham. We'll see you next time.